Hello, I'm Sharon. She's Ginevra. We both have personal and professional expertise managing fibromyalgia. We are so excited to be back with all of you. Thank you for your comments. We've missed you all so much too. It's great to be back. We've read as many comments as we can. I wish we could get to all of them. But please know that your comments matter, and we do read quite a few of them. We also think that it's providing this nice community where you guys can kind of chat amongst yourselves and see what's working for people or how people are feeling about things. We've been really busy since we've been gone. We've been working on educational programs for healthcare professionals and industry leaders, as well as working on some advocacy initiatives that will hopefully lead to more fibromyalgia and chronic pain research, as well as access to more effective treatments.
And today's show is a bit different. We are showing some clips from prior interviews with folks that have their own lived experience of fibromyalgia. And we feel like hearing other people's fibromyalgia stories can really help with education and inspiration and validation. And all of those are so key to finding ways to help ourselves with fibromyalgia. So you're going to hear from both me and Sharon, but also Tami, Melissa, and Linda. You're going to hear from 5 different fibromyalgia experiences, and we hope to do more content like this down the road. So stay tuned, because we're going to be doing some different things here at the Fibro Show. All the good stuff. We're keeping all the good stuff and just adding some new stuff.
And you'll hear more about all about that next month, as well as drop us a comment on how you like these personal stories. Enjoy.
My fibromyalgia story starts, I was about the same age, actually. I was like 24, 25, and it was at the end of my first year of medical school. And it was a really stressful time. It was like finals week, and I went to the gym and was exercising because that's what I thought I was supposed to do to reduce stress. And I was doing weightlifting, and I felt, as I was kind of bench pressing, I felt something like rip or tear in my neck, and it was the weirdest feeling, but I just assumed that it would get better like other injuries I'd had, as an athlete in high school. So I thought, it's like a sprained ankle, like I sprained my neck, it'll get better. But it didn't get better, and over the next several months, it just got worse and worse, and it was like the whole front of my neck was just, like, on fire, and it was like my neck couldn't hold up my head, like, my head was too heavy for my neck to even hold it up, and then the pain started to spread from my neck to really over my whole body. I started to really notice more fatigue. My sleep, I felt like no matter how much I slept, I still woke up and I felt unrested, unrefreshed. I really I also kinda thought my life was over. It took me a long time to actually get the diagnosis, because this was before, before the time where doctors were as familiar with fibromyalgia as they are now. So, for about a year, I struggled to kind of find somebody that could help, and I just was getting more and more depressed and more miserable, and even though I kept telling myself, like, "This isn't cancer, I'm not gonna die from this," it really felt like my life was over, and I thought, "I'm gonna have to go on disability and drop out of medical school," and I ended up, kind of in a last-ditch effort. I took a year leave. I took a year-long medical leave from school, and I just tried literally everything I could think of. I tried all sorts of alternative medicine treatments, and I ultimately actually saw a chiropractor who finally gave me the diagnosis of fibromyalgia. And I remember being like, "Fibro what now?" Like, nobody had talked about that in medical school. None of my classes had mentioned that. And it was really like this very eye-opening, like, "Oh, this is a whole new thing I'm gonna have to kind of figure out for myself." And I remember the piece that, like, really I was so desperate to hear. I really just wanted to know, like, is it even possible to get better from fibromyalgia? Like, I definitely learned very quickly that there was not a cure. It was not something that, I was going to like magically one day it just goes away. But I remember thinking, like, if I could just even talk to one person that I knew got better,
Mhm.
that I would have the kind of hope and inspiration I needed to keep going. And I was fortunate to stumble into that person. I was calling a naturopath to try to make an appointment with her, and I said, I'm not sure if you've helped many people, if you know about fibromyalgia." And she said, "Oh, I have that." And what she actually said is, "Oh, I had that." And I was like, "Sorry, did you say had, like past tense?" She was like, "Well, I mean, I still have it, but I'm so much better that I say like had fibromyalgia." And it was like light bulb rainbow moment where I was like, okay, it is possible. And all I have to do is figure out how. And I remember thinking to myself, like, if I can find a way to get myself better fibromyalgia enough that I could get back to medical school, I would really dedicate my career, my whole medical career, my whole life to trying to help other people get better from fibromyalgia. And I'm happy to say that I've been able to get about 70% better from those darkest early days. And that's absolutely why I'm doing this show, is to try to get the message out to maybe if you're sitting there in the dark misery of early days of fibromyalgia, to hear the message that it is possible to feel better.
All right. Well, I started with fibromyalgia 35 years ago. That was after the birth of my first son, when I had quite a traumatic cesarean birth. And unfortunately, I didn't get diagnosed for 11 years. So I didn't quite know what was going on. So it was a pretty difficult time and a struggle. And I had a pretty rough time trying to bring up two very active boys. So that was hard work. But in 2004, I was at my worst, and I thought I was going to have to buy buy an electric wheelchair. I actually road tested the wheelchair I was about to buy, and I thought I'd be using that for the rest of my life. And I never, ever thought I'd re-register as an occupational therapist again. So what happened was I then got the chance to see a nutritional physiotherapist in England, and she helped me a bit with pacing and diet. And she gave me a load of hope, because it was the first time I'd met anybody with fibro who'd actually got better and well enough to work again.
That's
So
so huge.
yeah, and that was really exciting. And with her help, I improved 40%. And then I was still struggling. For example, driving in the car for 20 minutes as a passenger. After just 20 minutes, I would get such severe stabbing in my back. It was real agony. And I used to go up to London to lobby the Houses of Parliament for fibromyalgia. And fibro was so sensitive. I could not go on the London Underground, because the noise and the crowds was just too much. So I used to have to pay for taxis to get there. So it was a difficult time. And just getting my boys to school was pretty horrendous, and I would just about get them to school. Sometimes I'd have to drive my younger one half a mile just down to the school, because I couldn't walk the distance. I'd come home, collapse, perhaps do a little bit of housework. Then I would, collapse again and have a good rest. And then I'll get ready for the boys coming home, so I could, help them with their homework and then get them to bed afterwards. And that was my day, basically.
Just in survival mode, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And so then I got the chance to try the alpha, but just before that, I'd had a year-long headache. And I tried most of the medications on offer for fibromyalgia. Unfortunately, I was so sensitive to the drugs, I couldn't tolerate them. So the only thing I was taking was paracetamol. And I went to the pharmacist to say, had he got anything else to help the headaches? And he said, well, I'm afraid I think you've got a rebound headache from the paracetamol, because I was taking it constantly. So I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to stop paracetamol. What do I do?
Which is known as Tylenol here, just in the US.
The doctor who was a mentor of our support group that I was helping to run, he came across the alpha stem, basically because the UK supplier of the alpha stem contacted him because Dr. Lister had actually done research into fibromyalgia, particularly into supplements, because he used to be a specialist in pharmaceuticals and got frustrated that pharmaceuticals were causing so many side effects, so he was going more into supplements. Anyway, Steve Hutchison, the UK supplier, contacted Bob and said, do you know anybody with fibromyalgia who'd be willing to try the alpha stem? And so he volunteered me. And I said, hang on a minute, Bob. and I'd actually tried some weird stuff with Bob that hadn't been very successful.
The things we try, right?
Right? We'll try with anything.
So I said to Bob, hang on, let me just look at the research. And I looked at the research, and there are 4 RCTs, studies on fibromyalgia and the alpha stem. And it'd been used in the States at that point for about 20 years. And I thought, well, why haven't we heard about it? This sounds too good to be true.
Right.
So I thought, okay, it's worth a try. So I got hold of a unit, no help whatsoever. So it was a struggle to try and work out how to use it. So I got 2 groups with using the ear clips. And that's these things that I'm wearing on my earlobes here. And I was just using it an hour a day, daily for a couple of weeks. And I then realized something was happening. It was quite simple. And we had to go to London. Then I went on 2 underground trains, normally something that would set off my fibro. And I coped with that. Then I met up with my husband in the evening, and we went for a meal with a very noisy restaurant which had no curtains and it wooden floors. So it's all that clattering noise. And that would normally set me off and I'd have to leave, but I was okay. And on the way back from the station in London to our home, I turned to my husband and said, that's odd. I feel okay. And then it was just 6 weeks later, we went to an art exhibition, and it was Constable and Turner, and it was the penultimate day, and it was really busy and crowded. And I coped with that. We stopped for a coffee, and my husband turned to me and said, this has got to be more than placebo. So he'd noticed the difference in me. 2 months after that, after just using the eclipses we went to the Lake District for a holiday. And I managed to walk up one of the fells, which is quite a medium-sized mountain. And before, on previous holidays, I'd stayed in the car park at the bottom of the hill and watched my husband and the 2 boys go up the hill because I just didn't have the energy. So that was fantastic.
That's huge.
Yeah, you had some real tangible things that you were seeing and feeling. How exciting that must have been.
So for me, I was diagnosed, oh gosh, when was it? Actually, let me back up a little bit further. So I got married in 2006, and about 6 months later is when I got my diagnosis. So that's a whole thing, which we don't need to talk about today. But yeah, so I was diagnosed, it was like 2007, 2008. I got so bad that I decided I needed to file for disability. 2009, I was talking to my doctor about the fact that my whole life felt like it was all downhill. And that's when she referred me to a health coach in her office. And that's when everything started to turn around for me. So 2010, time to go see the judge for my disability case. I actually no longer qualified, which was awesome. And from there, it's just gotten better and better. I became a coach in 2009, all the things. But yes, it has been a long journey, and especially back at the beginning. I mean, I was diagnosed in 2007, and that was right when the very first drugs were starting to come out. And so leading up to that, it was such a struggle to find anybody who knew, like even to give me a diagnosis, what to do, right?
Did it take you then several physicians to get a diagnosis?
I actually had to wait for a diagnosis until after I got married, after I switched insurance, switched out of the HMO I was part of. And that's when I finally was able to get a diagnosis. I had actually tried for years, but being stuck in that HMO box, I mean, today it's probably a little bit different, but especially back then, they just didn't know what to do with me. So if I go back to when I was like really struggling and when the tide started to turn, really, the first thing is actually the same thing as what Melissa said. Looking at all the pieces, and I remember thinking, if I could make all the pieces work better, the whole would work better.
Mm.
Right? So if my thyroid is working like it's supposed to, if my adrenals are working like they're supposed to, if all the deficiencies are worked on, all of those things would improve. So that was really like my first thought. The second thing that I would say was a huge thing for me, and actually still is what I call a very practical kind of mindfulness, which is really just being aware in any given moment how I feel and how different things are affecting me. So more than most people, I think I have a good idea of, oh, if I do that, this is how I'm going to feel afterwards. So I know ahead of time, right? And depending on how I feel, I also know how to get back to my baseline. So just really that body knowledge really helped me a lot, because I think our bodies tell us what they need, so it's not that's how you know if a therapy worked, or that's how you know if you're moving in the right direction. It's just to listen to what your body's telling you, right? So that was a biggie. And then the other thing that I would say, if I can only pick three,
Just for today.
the thing that I always go back to, and I is acupuncture. For me, it was so helpful, and I went every other week religiously for years and years and years.
Yeah, so in 2009, we had a really stressful year. We'd lost somebody in the family, and it involved a whole bunch of things, travel and a lot of stuff for the entire year. And slowly I started having different things would happen. So I'd go to the doctor and I was diagnosed with TMJ, and I'd go to the doctor and I would have, sciatica. And it just kind of kept going from there, where every time I would go someplace, they'd send me to somebody else and I would have something else diagnosed. I call them the evil sidekicks, is what I call them. And
Yep.
so I just kind of kept acquiring them one after another. And I wasn't getting anywhere. And I started to go online and kind of diagnose myself with what I thought that I might have. I wasn't sure, and there wasn't really anybody listening to me at all. Um, and I kind of did kind of what Tammy did, in a sense, is that I went and found myself a doctor that didn't know squat about me and didn't know anything about any of my stuff. And I went in there and I said, "This is what I think I have. These are all the things that I've been dealing with for this amount of time. And I think that I have this, and I just need someone to send me to the right person, and I need to get tested. I've had all these other, I just need to find out what's going on." And luckily they did send me. They did the first little things they have to do quick, ruled out some things, and then they did send me. I was diagnosed really fast once I did that. And then, of course, the person who diagnosed me said, "Well, yes, you have it, but I'm not going to treat you." Basically, is
Mhm.
exactly what that's just not what he does. "I'll diagnose you, but I won't treat you." We also did, where I hit one thing at a time, right? I think that was the main thing. You don't try to hit fibromyalgia head on and try to take care of, "I'm going to fix this." That's not going to happen. So I kind of took away each sidekick as I could. I would go after this one and let's see what I can do to manage, or to remove this one. And that's what I did. And that was my first thing that I did, was let's try to get those migraines, so you're not having those migraines all the time, right? You don't need to be down. And so I would just go, and that's what I did. Each one of them, and it took a long time. It wasn't a quick fix for each one of them, and some of them, like I said, I do still have some of them, but the majority of them I don't. So that was the first thing. Sleep was one of the major things that I needed. I still don't hit the deep sleep, so I never hit that, but I am much more rested than I was before, and I'm not up in the middle of the night to figure out how to get that managed with kind of the mix, like I said before, between the medication and natural kind of things too. I think that's the second most important thing for me to be able to do. And the other one, I think, all the other stuff has helped, But I really think that I always think you need to sit and move, right? If you sit too long, it's not good for you. And if you move too long, it's not good for you, but you have to do both. And I think that if you push yourself too much or if you sit too long, I don't think that's ever been, at least for myself, that was never a good thing, and so I think that even though I've had all these other wonderful things that I've done to help me get better, I think that that's really been one of the major things for me, is to realize that this is when I need to take a break, and but I need to keep moving, even if in the beginning. I mean, when we first started talking stuff, Tammy and I, like in the beginning, we used to say, it's like, okay, go around a chair. You do that one day, do it every 10 minutes or every commercial, and just kind of build yourself up to climbing up hills you shouldn't be climbing up, things like that.
Been there, did that.
I did that.
With Melissa.
So that's actually a common theme, I would say, with Sharon and I's story as well, as far as what helped us. So improving sleep, movement therapy, pacing, the balance of activity and rest, and then trying to knock off those additional kind of, if you have TMJ that's like a huge fiery ball of pain, it's going to be really hard to manage or reduce any of the overall fibromyalgia symptoms. So I like how you kind of systematically went through and tried to address those. What do you call them? Evil sidekicks?
No sidekicks,
I like
yeah.
that term. Yeah.
Yeah, so I became sick around the age of 23, 24. Previous to that, I had been very athletic and physically fit and, did all to college and worked. And I was actually in my first job outside of college. And I got sick with bronchitis and I never really recovered from that. That being said, I also want to mention that I have a history of a lot of chronic pain growing up as a child. My mom would take me to the doctor and they'd say it's just growing pains. So for me, what I say is around the age of 24, it became full blown after this incident of bronchitis. So it got so bad that I became bedridden. To walk from my bedroom to the kitchen, I would need to take a nap in the kitchen on the floor before I could walk back. Um, and luckily, I did get some information that aquatics therapy can really be beneficial. So I went to a program and it was in a hotel. And so I had to like park in a hotel parking lot and then walk into the hotel and to the locker room. And by the time I got to the pool, I was just in tears because it was so much pain. I was so exhausted. Um, and in the pool is this woman, doing the water exercise, several decades older than me and jumping around. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, what's wrong?" And I said, "Well, you probably never heard of this, but I have fibromyalgia." And she's like, "Oh, I have that." And I was just like, "You do?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "It'll be all right." And, long story short, I got into the pool and over time got a lot better. And Mary Ann was her name. She helped me found the group that I started. But, she was just like this ray of hope that I really, really needed at that time, because up to that point, I wasn't getting very good information. I really thought my life was over. I didn't think I'd get married, have kids, be able to walk and enjoy all the active things I liked doing. Um, and so, anyways, I also did attend a support group, and that wasn't real helpful. Everybody was quite a bit older than me, and they were all like 90% using like walkers, wheelchairs. And I thought, oh man, again, my life is over. I heard about this amazing conference that was happening in Oregon, and I decided to go. My family supported me, and it was doctors and researchers and other fibro patients. And because at this point there weren't really books, the internet wasn't what it is today. And I went and learned all of this great information, learned what the disease was, how people were, working on it and what people were doing to get better. And I met support group leaders from around not even around the country, but the world. And so I came back and decided, yeah, I wanted to start a support group, but it was going to be different than the one that I went to. It's going to be a lot like this meeting I went to, where it's a lot of education, a lot of positivity, even though things are dark. I'm not saying we have to be Pollyanna about it, but be positive. So that's what I did, to get started. And that's part of my journey here.